Hello and welcome to the show. I am back on Project Cars 2, going to be tackling a Snowy Nurburgring once more. This time, well, taking something a long way outside of its comfort zone. We've got the Nascar. The Ford Fusion is going to be tackling this rather daunting task. Now, I'm not expecting this to go fastest, let's be honest here. However, I have got some hopes for this. I say I've got some hopes for this. Very long gear ratios are very, very helpful for this. Of course, it is only a 4-speed gearbox in this. And with it having a fairly high top speed, the gear ratios are going to be nice and spread out. There's no turbos to worry about either. So, my theory and my hope is that the power delivery is not going to be too bad. I mean, fingers crossed and everything. The power delivery is not going to be too bad. There are, of course, plenty of concerns. While there is an element of downforce, absolutely, it is not going to be Formula 1 levels, LMP levels, Group C levels, or there are levels of downforce when we come to the corners. So we're probably going to be quite... It's going to be quite slow, I think, when we get to the corners. I think it's going to be... Wait, is a good sounding engine, of course. Yeah, it's going to be a sort of tentatively hold on to everything as you go around the corner, and then boot it and use all the power once we get out the other side. At least that's what we're going to go for. Our target time for this, I have just one lap to go as quick as possible. Sub 9 minute. 8:59 is the fastest time we have done, set by the Astra Touring car. I don't think we're going to see the Ford here go quicker than that. I'd be amazed, certainly, if it got even remotely close. A 9:22 is still kind of our little mini challenge in this series, if you like. That's the time set by the Audi S1, the little hatchback. That all-wheel drive might not have had much power, but that all-wheel drive, of course, gave it great traction around here. If our Ford can beat the Audi, I would be quite happy. I think it might be doable. It's all going to come down to how much corner speed can I take in this car. Am I going to be able to exploit any of the vehicle's power around here? Traction does seem pretty good so far. Traction does seem quite good, and that will be very important. That will be very important indeed. If we can actually get the 750 horsepower down onto the road, I'd be pretty happy with that. Here we go. Can I get to full throttle? I'm not quite sure I trust full throttle, but we got pretty damn close, actually. Okay, so traction-wise, we're not doing too bad. Now, I'm not likely to be able to carry ludicrous speeds through these corners. I've got to be a little bit mindful, naturally, through here. But again, I can get back on that power okay. So, balance-wise, the car seems good. I'm very wary of saying that too much, because you know what the curse of the commentator is going to be like. I mean... We have actually got some pretty good speed down this section. I'm going to have to frantically slow it down for the next corner. There goes a little bit of oversteer. It's actually this braking zone here that's in many cases the scarier one. Oh no. Okay. I mean, we got up to some good speed. I think about 150 miles an hour at that section, which is not too shabby. It then got quite scary as we had the front end grip to turn in, but then the back end... The back end did not want to quite follow suit. We caught it all, we got the car slowed down for the next corner. That's kind of the important stuff here. We can probably get away with 120 through that bottom corner. Now, it's not this turn that's the problem. It's slowing it down for this next turn. That's where the issue comes at the top of that hill. Brakes are a concern here. I don't know. I imagine this must be like a road course spec car, potentially, that they have in the game. I don't know. Don't quite know how they've dealt with brakes, because, I mean, these are pretty heavy cars, and a lot of the time, I say that the brakes are less important at some venues. Some of the short courses and so on, the brakes get very hot and do an awful lot of work when it comes to the ovals. But Yeah, I mean, the brakes aren't the most powerful on this, and we're now trying to stop what is a pretty heavy race car on snow, on ice. We've got the right tyres for it, naturally. The ice tyres working well here, but it's still not designed for this. Oh, come on, back end, stay. Oh, we were gone. I very much thought that was going to be a clonk into the wall and game over for our Fusion. It is not. There's kind of little moments where it lets go. Little moments that if you're very, very quick, you can gather it back in. It's a little nerve-wracking. It's not the most... It's not the most composed. It's like we've seen a lot of cars be, if I'm honest. It's... It goes okay, and if anything, there's sort of it turns in pretty well. You just got to fight that back end. It's less snappy than the Formula 1 car, that much is for sure, but it's probably going considerably slower than the Formula 1 car in a lot of places. If anything, it's, well, funnily enough, quite a lot like the Trans Am car. We are going to clonk the wall there. I have no... Like, I was a little too late on the brakes there, and once that back end started moving, if I turned in any more, I'd have spun, so I kind of took the lesser of two evils of kind of wiggle out towards the wall. It's going to cost us a little bit of time, but not too much. Certainly nowhere near as much as a spin would have done. Can I be flat? Dare I be flat through here? Not really. I don't know what this car is going to be like across the curbs. I haven't really hit the curbs too hard. I guess where we have had sort of bumpy terrain, it's not been snappy and wiggly. It's kind of a little bit more progressive, a little bit more predictable. I much prefer that. Of course, that is much easier to work with. However, I do think if we start getting upset with this, I'm not sure we quite have the grip to catch it. The Rad Bull had big advantage with its huge steering lock. If you got things unhappy, you could actually catch that relatively well. In this, we haven't got a huge steering lock to work with. Normal race car steering lock, if you like. So if things start going wrong, I'm not sure we have the rear end grip to really get away with everything. We're also going to slow down a fair bit here because I'm not trusting the car. This corner is a it's an easy place to get out. I was being cautious there. I was in a fairly high gear, and you still see what the back end wanted to be doing. Don't hit that inside curb too hard because that will bounce you up into the air, slow into the hairpin, catch the big slide. Yeah, it's not as bad as a Formula 1 car with downforce. Well, there suddenly being no downforce when we get to these lower speed corners. It still does similar things. They're just a little bit more manageable. They're just a little bit more predictable. I can't believe I'm comparing a bloody Formula 1 car to a Nascar, but you know, this series is throwing up some really weird battles. As I said, I don't think this is going to go quick enough to beat that Formula 1. I think maybe the competition between this and the Zonda R, the Turbine Lotus, we might be pushing it a little bit for those cars. The Turbine Lotus all-wheel drive, the Zonda with huge levels of downforce, etc. We might be pushing it to get near those cars, but I'm going to give it a damn good shot with this, as good a shot as I can do. Fortunately, we're now into the twisty bits, potentially where we're going to come a little bit unstuck. I don't know. I don't know if this is where we're going to come a little bit unstuck. However, yeah, if anywhere is going to confuse this poor car, or more than it's already confused, it doesn't know too much what these sort of corners are like, let alone when it's got to deal with snow. It's all fine, honestly. Honestly, little NASCAR, well, big NASCAR, it's fine. Everything is good. Everything is good. Everything is bad. Everything is bad. Everything is bad. Everything is good again. Like that's basically how this series is going. Everything is fine until all of a sudden it isn't, and then it's all very, very not fine, and then all very fine again if you manage to keep it out of the barriers. It's at least with this. At least with this is a little bit more predictable and it's a little bit smoother when it lets go. It's not the easiest car that I've driven around here, but it could be 10 times worse. It could be 10 times worse. And it does at least go in a straight line when we get to an actual straight, which is, you know, nice and helpful. We'll go with a short shift. I don't actually think the curbs are too bad, helpfully. Oh, although a brake lock up there might cause us grief. There's such a fine line with a huge number of these cars. But you've got to turn it enough, of course, to make the corner, but not so much that you get the back end moving around. It's slightly strange thing that you end up doing with these. You're very much driving on that incredibly thin knife edge. As you can imagine, driving around a Snowy Nurburgring as fast as you dare, we have got a couple more corners until we end up on the big long straight. I actually think that handled the technical section pretty well. Let's not say that though until we've got until we've completed the lap, please, because curse of the commentator will inevitably strike. We're going to get a big slide. It's kind of, yeah, you get a big slide, you go to counter steer it, and then in counter steering it, it almost flicks the other way. It's not quite a full-on tank slapper, managing to deal with it just about well enough so that we don't end up towards the fence too often. However, it's still, yeah, there we go. We ran a little wide out of that corner. That was me being a touch brave. Now, if we want to beat that Audi, we are going to need a mega run down here. We do have plenty of power. Unfortunately, I say unfortunately, the ice tyres do limit us in terms of top speed. We are not quite as quick as I would have wanted us to be here. We're at 9 minutes, what, 22 seconds to get our way through these final corners. Come on forward. I did have to have a little lift, but I'm going to have a big early break here. Oh, I'm not going to make it. I'm not even sure I'm going to make it now. Oh, we had a big wiggle through all of that. I was even with a big early break, that was not going to be enough to to stop that. But it was a little bit of a cheeky corner cut, and despite all of that, we pinged off a couple of walls. It's definitely not going to get anywhere near to the Quattro. That's going to be across the line. It's a 9:35.2. Ugh. That's. I was expecting. I was perhaps hoping for a little bit of a quicker lap time from the car. It kind of felt like it was a little bit quicker in many ways. It didn't really feel. I mean, there were a couple of moments where I was fighting the car. Of course, they're always going to be, but it didn't feel like I was fighting the car anywhere near as much as a lot of vehicles that have got around here. So while it is fairly smooth to drive in many ways and easily catchable when things go a little bit wrong, yeah, a 9:35.2 is not a massively, well, I say it's not a massively quick time. It does beat the Sauber C9, it does beat the Red Bull, but to be fair to the Sauber, that had massive turbos and I spun. The Nascar, yeah, okay, we bumped a couple of walls, but certainly the Sauber lost more in its individual spin. We do lose out to the Can-Am Porsche, the V8 supercar that also spun. Yeah, we're a fair way down on the Audi S1. We're, well, over 10 seconds down on the Camaro Z28, the Trans Am car. Trans Am car far faster around here than our Fusion. That's not, I'd say that's not quite the, again, not quite the result. Oopsie daisy. Quite the result I was expecting. I had hoped we might have been able to get a little bit better a lap time out of this car. Long gear ratios, power delivery, not too shabby at all. I guess maybe we're just losing too much speed through the corners from just simply not having the grip to get through these, potentially. Yeah, that does surprise me a little bit. It does surprise me, especially being beaten by the Trans Am car by such a considerable amount. But there we go. That's they are the results. They are indeed the results of this. Not a terrible showing, not a terrible showing at all, and in many ways a relatively controllable vehicle, but not so fast when it comes to the Snowy Nurburgring. That, though, is going to be it for this video. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.